Okay, hi everyone. My name is Bradley Kavanagh. I'm a Ramon y Cajal Fellow at the Instituto de Física de Cantabria in Santander in northern Spain. I'm here to continue our EuCAPT video profile series, in which we interview leading figures in the field of theoretical astroparticle physics and cosmology, finding out from them a little more about them and also learning about new developments in the field, what's exciting, but also perhaps a little bit what it's like to be a scientist more generally. So it's a very great pleasure to have Fabio Iocco here. He's a professor at the University of Naples. I could go for more introduction, but I think it makes sense to perhaps hear a bit more from Fabio himself. So maybe we can jump right in. So hi, Fabio.
Hello, Bradley. Thank you
Hi.
very much for having me. It's really a pleasure and a honor.
Fantastic. So yeah, to start off, maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? Maybe how did you first spark an interest in science?
But thank you for asking the two things together because I think they're correlated. I was born and raised in Naples, here where I'm actually right now. I'm a professor in my hometown. I think it's also not a very common thing in our field. And I was raised here. I did my undergrad here. I think interest in science, I've been thinking about a little bit, and I think it came out just being raised here because here everything is chaos. There is no apparent logic. There is no apparent order in anything. And sometimes even plain facts are denied. People can actually deny blatantly facts in your face. And I think an environment, a system in which facts are facts, they're assessed, and then you try to derive a logic to things and to infer according to that logic new facts or possible new facts was something that probably I didn't realize at the time, but it was a leading thread in my life. So science comes out of this, I think.
Yeah, trying to find a little bit of order away from the chaos.
Indeed, or order in chaos.
Order, perhaps order in chaos too.
Yeah.
Okay, so like you said, it's perhaps unusual to end up as a professor in the place where you grew up. So maybe you want to tell us a little bit about the trajectory of how you started in Naples and then ended up back in Naples.
All right. Just say I ended up forward in Naples.
Of
The
course.
way you go around the circle, it's always forward. But yeah. So I started here as an undergrad, and I also started my PhD here in physics at the Department of Physics. And then I went for a very long visiting at Stanford University, at the KIPAC. Actually, the Kabul Institute for Particle Astrophysics was being funded. It had been funded a few years before, and it was really building. So 3 out of 4 of my PhD was in California. Then I went to Europe for my postdocs, and I had a short postdocs in Florence and Arcetri. And then 3 years in Paris and different formulas. And then 2 years in Stockholm, again, a postdoc. Then I went to Madrid for a postdoc, but that I interrupted because I was offered a tenure track in Brazil. So the ICTP, the International Center for Theoretical Physics, whose mother institute is in Trieste, had opened local centers, and they were looking for faculties. And I was hired as a tenure track in the center in South America. So I spent here the years of my tenure track, but while I was finishing my tenuring, I got this offer from Naples, and there were external and internal conditions that made me feel I wanted to go to my hometown. So that's how the circle kept circling.
Yeah, that's how you ended up forward in
Yes, in
Naples.
Naples, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we haven't talked at all yet about your research. Maybe you want to give us a very brief overview of the things you're interested in. Maybe you can think a little bit about what's the most exciting point during your research career.
So in terms of topic, I shifted a little bit, but also the philosophy of what I'm doing a bit shifted. So let me start with the topics, and maybe we can take it from that. Topic wise, I started my PhD thesis is actually on a search for population tree stars. So you might imagine how excited I am now at JWST coming up online. But so I started with population tree stars, but also a very heavy involvement in primordial nucleosynthesis. So somehow cosmology and within primordial early phases of the universe. And so the thesis was mostly on population tree stars. There was a lot of primordial nucleosynthesis in the making. And then from there, I progressed toward dark matter. So I was staying in the cosmology environment somehow, but taking it a little bit more on the particle physics side. And then sort of I stayed in the dark matter environment and the dark matter subcommunity, of course, not forgetting anything of the rest. And then within the dark matter, I moved a little bit from testing different type of candidates to really doing some sort of geography of the dark matter, so distribution of dark matter. So it's a flow, and I felt there was a continuity at each step. It was never a big jump, but I changed the subject somehow.
Yeah, I mean, I
subjects
think
are connected a bit.
yeah, I think this is perhaps something which a lot of people in working on dark matter and maybe theoretical astroparticle physics in general would identify with, this kind of flow from one area to another, acknowledging that all these things are connected in some way. It's all a circle somehow.
Right. That's right. Yeah. And I think you follow also your interest and what you're excited the most. So I think part of shifting is to keep the excitation going, right? So I think the moment I was most excited was when I was younger and definitely more ignorant than now, because then your potential for learning and your potential for amazement is higher, right? So you get more excited because you're learning more. And I'm not saying you know everything of the field after a while, but your potential, the margin for learning new things, personally, I'm not talking about what you're giving to the community, it becomes smaller, right?
If you shift slightly to a new area,
you look for the places where you're most ignorant, and then you get excited.
You have much more scope for learning there, right?
Exactly. In terms of excitation for data, I think there's been different, well, in terms of excitation as a member of the community, not just personally what I was excited about. I think there's been very momentous discoveries while I had my path, and completely independent of me, I must say. I think when I was a student, I was too young, because WMAP 1 and 3 came out while I was a young graduate student or something like that. And I think I didn't appreciate what that meant for cosmology. I think I appreciated later on how different that was from Kobe, what an amazing improvement for precision cosmology that was. So I had a grasp on it, but I wasn't super excited because I couldn't have the perception of it. But things that made the community really bubble up while I was doing my path was certainly the Higgs discovery, gravitational waves, like direct detection of gravitational waves was something that was not impossible. Personally, I got very excited when we saw the Pamela positron fraction rise. Everybody got excited. Of course, there was a reason to be excited. It was not the original reason, but it was a very exciting moment in which there was a lot of creativity and a lot of things to do in the community. People developed a lot of new ideas, and old ideas were renewed. So that was very exciting. And I guess another moment that was very exciting for me was when I was at CAIPAC, when I moved at the Kabul Institute for Particle Astrophysics. And I think that's because humanly, you always resent and reflect from the environment. And that was an environment that was being created in the moment. There was a burst of energy, you could feel it. And that's very important, being in a place where you can keep the excitation going, because it's coming all sides, and you mirror and you reflect and you absorb and you give back. So it's good.
New people coming together to interact and kind of create something new is always a very exciting thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And no, it's funny that you talk about moving fields, or sort of shifting gently across fields to look for the excitement. But at the same time, there were clearly lots of new and exciting things happening. Like you say, the discovery, the first detection of gravitational waves and the Pamela excess. So it feels like there are a few factors going on here. Yeah,
definitely. I think it's also a matter of how much you're contributing personally to something, and how much you know enough to to enjoy what's going on at the WMAP thing for me. I
Yeah.
didn't know enough to understand how exciting that was. If it had been just an epsilon more, I would have felt the excitation, yet I wasn't particularly contributing, but I would have joined in. This is also being a part of the community,
A collective,
exactly.
a collective excitement and
Absolutely.
appreciation.
Yeah.
So those are things that happened previously. What's the next thing? What's the new advance or new result that you're most excited about? Maybe an upcoming experiment, a theoretical result that you're hoping to see sometime in the future?
So first love is never forgotten. Maybe it's childish, but I want to see the first light in the universe. I am extremely excited from JWST, and it's really amazing. Like, you're gonna see the first stars in the universe. Like, it's the first moment that you have nuclear reactions beside the primordial parts, like a star coming together and forming a universe. It's the first this time that visible light is produced by an independent event in the universe. That's it's clearly physics a lot with your brain. Like, there's something primeval about birth of things. But I'm very excited. This aside, and one might say this is not fundamental physics. It is somehow fundamental cosmology. Yet, in terms of fundamental things, and I'm sure other people have answered the same, given the same answer, but dark matter and dark energy are definitely important things that we want to find. Dark energy and inflation. And the reason why they're very exciting to me, somehow probably dark energy and inflation more than dark matter, it's because it's something entirely new. It's completely new physics, and we're getting a hold on it. We're knowing that they are there, and we're getting a hold on it from astronomy, from astrophysics, and something we've not seen on Earth. It's fundamental physics, and it comes from the astro. And this is the essence of astroparticle. This is really learning new fundamental particle things from the skies. It's
by looking out into the universe and being able to learn something about this completely new thing. Yeah. No, it's clearly a very exciting time, and I think people were excited for JWST, but I mean, even those people couldn't have anticipated just how incredible and unexpected the results are. So I can see how excited you are for what's still to come from JWST.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get rid of all bureaucracy I can, so I can concentrate on research over the next years.
Okay, so maybe we can change direction a little bit, and you could tell us a little bit about what you like and what you dislike about being a scientist.
Okay, that's a tough question.
That's a tough question.
That's a tough question. Okay, let's get rid of the ugly part first. There's something connotated to being a scientist in public funding, which is bureaucracy, and nobody likes that. It's one big price that you pay for using public money, and I'm grateful that I'm paid public money to do what I like. So I certainly do not complain about it, but I cannot say I enjoy doing the massive amount of bureaucracy that I have to do. But on more fundamental things, I would say that what I enjoy about science, being a scientist, so having the freedom to do what I like, is the freedom, and what I dislike is the freedom, because you're always put in front of your own limits and in front of the limitation of your own desires. So I can research in one direction within the macro area that I've chosen, and I'm allowed also by funding to, but that's a mild limitation. And that's also, if I fail, or if I don't find what I want, or if I hit a wall of knowledge, it's somehow a responsibility of having chosen that direction. So I think it's part of being human and being free. You choose what you want, be careful what you wish for, and
you then have to live with the consequences of being unconstrained.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There is another part. Well, there's a lot of part of the common life of scientists, a bit of the delocalization, the fragmentation of schedule. I guess all this is a very practical part that if you're skilled enough, you somehow managed to put together.
Yeah.
But I think at the more existential level is the freedom is a great gift, and it's a great damnation at the same time, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you talked briefly there about the possibility that, you can set out in one direction, and, perhaps you don't achieve what you were hoping to achieve, you don't make the progress that you want. Um, is there a big obstacle currently? Do you have in mind some obstacles in the field, in your field in particular, that still need to be overcome?
There's many obstacles, and I think probably somehow astroparticle is addressing very big questions, and it's becoming a community endeavor. When I was a grad student, that was not long ago, but still it was transiting from a science that you could do with few ideas, and of course you needed instruments, but you could have a lot of productive ideas and test them in a relatively short time. Now we're going toward a bigger size. CMB experiments have become way more complex in their big collaborations. Particle physics experiments, they are humongous collaborations to build the biggest machine that humankind has ever built. So it's the fact that if you want to push through a CTA, for instance, or imagine all the new experiments that you have in mind, right? So you need to be part of a bigger collaboration, and the bigger collaboration has to break a higher ceiling to going through into discovery. So somehow that's the inertia, and the fact that we're aiming really for the sky, it makes it more difficult. It's the inertia that.
Yeah. This is part of the EuCAPT video profile series, and so maybe this is a good time to ask. You talked about people coming together and trying to work collectively and collaboratively. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the role that you see EuCAPT playing in that within Europe.
Sure. I think it's a good thing. Don't take me wrong. When I was a grad student and comparing to the past, there was a community of astroparticle physics. Clearly there was, and there was until a few years ago when EuCAPT was created. At the same time, there was no coordination on a European level. So there were parallel streams of people perhaps doing the same thing, or not being very structured in asking for European fundings. So certainly there is a bureaucratic or structure that EuCAPT is giving, which is good for the reason that it's managing to capture and intercept European fundings. And we're going more and more toward leaving aside individual states and being in Europe. So that's good. In parallel to that, I think there is this identity, like identifying ourselves as member of the astroparticle community, because it went under a label. I don't like labels in general, but at the same time, it creates an identity. And there was often this feeling, you're a particle physicist, you're an astronomer of high energy. We're doing very different things within astroparticle physics, and we certainly are aware of our diversity ourselves. Yet presenting our face to governments, to funding agencies, to other scientists as well, as European astroparticle people, theory but part of experiment, is something that helps us both getting the funding and having an identity, which doesn't have to be carved in stone, but it helps us to identify.
Yeah, and perhaps this is the challenge that EuCAPT tries to address, that otherwise you would either fall into one camp or another, or down the gaps. But instead, if we can present this kind of collective identity, then it makes us all the stronger.
Absolutely. And down the gaps is something that has happened to many people throughout the last decades. Like, you're not particle, go to the astro, you're not astro, go to the particle. This has happened to many people, and having a face, having a name for it, for the outside community is, I guess, crucial.
Yeah, I completely agree. So again, changing direction, what do you like to do outside of work? What's your once you're done with the hard work of astroparticle theory, what do you like to do?
Is this going to be watched by graduate students? I'm never done with hard work. Always working. Yes.
I can make sure we edit out anything that you
Okay.
say that
Uh,
suggests you're done with work.
Absolutely. I before pandemic, I used to dance a lot, but that entails a big amount of interpersonal relationship with other human beings. So that was discouraged during the
Yeah.
pandemic. So right now I'm concentrating more on the musical part that was the dancing. Still, I clearly didn't give it up entirely because the pandemic is over and I still can. But I guess the fact that age is a continuously rising function doesn't help. But music. There's a lot of music in my life. There's not as much outdoor activity as I would like to, but there's a lot of that. And then I spend time with my family. That's one of the good things of being forward in your hometown. I get to see my mother and my siblings more often than I used to. That's
Yeah.
something very very nice.
Yeah. Do you see any kind of parallels between the musical side of things and the physics side of things? Is it another case of trying to find some kind of order?
There is a possibility to do that. I try to avoid it. I'm very bad at classifying things. So even when I have progression of chords, etc., I know I can systematize them. I try to avoid. I'm enjoying more of the aesthetics. I need a little bit of structure for it,
Yeah.
but I try to be less structured in music
Okay.
than I am in physics.
Okay. Sometimes the
It's a
structure
free
is good.
space where yeah,
Yeah. A, a little bit of good freedom.
yes,
Yeah.
indeed.
Okay. I think finally, do you have any suggestions, any advice for either for your younger self or younger colleagues who are just starting in the field?
Um, yes, know yourself. I guess this is an advice that's been given a long time ago. Know yourself and don't be afraid. And I think the two things go together. If I had known myself better, what gives me pleasure in science and what I'm good at doing, I could have probably steered and even taken more pleasure out of science. At the same time, if I had not been scared to disappoint myself, scared of changing direction, scared of succeeding. Sometimes you're scared of one idea, it's too big. I cannot do it, or no, we can't work, it's too big. So don't be scared. Don't be scared to give up an idea at some point. Of course, these things go together with very hard work and knowledge. So if you are at the center of yourself, then you are a good metric. So the extreme case of giving up an idea or say moving on, I wouldn't even say giving up, moving on from an idea or from a field. If you know what you're doing and if you are the expert and you decide that's a good moment to move on, that's doable. You shouldn't be scared of that. But at the same time, you must be the expert on that thing.
Yeah.
So I remember one very good piece of advice that I got. It was 2011, and I was in Stockholm, and we went to the Nobel lectures with a bunch of other postdocs because cosmology won the supernova, the acceleration of the universe. So
Yeah.
we went to the lectures, and there was also the chemistry lectures. And Dan Shechtman got the prize for chemistry in quasi-crystals. And he had been aggressed throughout his careers because he was told quasi-crystals didn't exist, only quasi-scientists exist. So he didn't hold back, he made names. But important thing that I took off is that he said, I was an expert. And if I hadn't been an expert, I would have backed off. But I knew my stuff and I didn't back away. Now, if you are the expert of what you're doing, then you're also a good metric of yourself. And you have extracted, you want to move on, you want to downsize your goals, then you're a good metric. So know yourself, know your limits, know your pleasure, know insight, be a good metric of the world, which is probably something also someone else has said before.
Well, if they haven't said it already, I think people are going to be repeating your version for some time. I think that's very good advice. Okay, I think that concludes the interview, the video profile. So I think the last thing is just to say thank you very much, Fabio, for joining us, for taking the time to share a little bit of your experience and your wisdom from the field.
Thank you, Bradley, and thanks for giving me the EuCAPT for giving me the chance to do this. I'm honored, really.
Of course, it was a pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.